belong or it is found under the scope of the exceptions, and then the WTO members may stop to doing or applying an obligation under the WTO system. And so here, in order to understand the fully mechanism of the WTO, we need to know at first the rules and any exception for that rules in applying. And so that's all the things we're gonna work in this seminar. Okay, so that is the overview. Now we move on to the first principle, non-discrimination. Non-discrimination. All right. Now, in order to protect and enhance the liberalizations of international trade, normally the WTO agreements contains in several provisions a kind of fundamental obligations on its members to refrain from discriminations. Well, in the early history of the GATT, these obligations mainly serve to address and how can we say, and abolish borders measures and internal national rules, which may explicitly discriminated with regard to the origins of the products. Now here, why we need for non-discriminations? Let's stop right here a little bit to think about it. Now, if you the target of the WTO is to promoting free trade, okay? And so how free trade can be done? How free trade can be reached? Now, normally it has to be cut down or limit we have to limit the use of own barriers, right? Has been raised at border and even behind the border, okay? And when we cut down all the barriers, we need to do it. We need to apply that for all products, whatever its origins are, right? We have to treat them equally. So that is the reason behind the requirement of non-discriminations in the WTO system. Now here you can see on the screen that I have listed two types of discriminations. Now the first one is non-discriminations between or among imported products. That means we have to limit the discriminations that has been raised at border, okay? So that is the first level, and that is why we have to apply most favored nation treatment. Okay, and so after the imported products has been entered into the domestic market, at that time there might be the discrimination amongst imported products and domestic products. Okay, and so for this level, again, we need to limit the non-discriminations between imported products and domestic products. Well, normally when we are here and this is our home and this is our products, and so we need to protect them. We need to encourage our farmer, our producers to do and to further develop in their productions, and so we need to support them. But now the rules of the international organizations ask us that, hey guys, as you can see that that imported product have to pass a long way to enter into the border. They have to pay a lot of money for transportations, has to pay a lot of money for tariff and all the charges that has been applied for them. And so it's unfair for them to to against facing with further barriers, even raising inside or behind the border. And so that is the reason why, or the next level, that's the WTO asked its member to stop such kind of discriminations. Okay, and so here, then that is the meaning of non-discrimination under the WTO rules. And for today part, we're going to work mostly on most favored nation treatment. All right. Well, I may not need to mention that, because it is the like most favored nation treatment can be considered as a bedrock principle of the system, and so it has been put on Article 1 on the very first article in the agreement, but it is with that meaning. Now, what exactly MFN require the WTO members to do? Now, this kinds of obligations requires WTO members to, in a very general idea, that to accord the most favorable tariff and regulatory treatment given to the products of any one member at the times of import or even export, but we don't need to talk about that. That will be make it super complicated for our class. And so right here, we just only focus on import products. Okay, and now so I'm now staying at explaining how MFN must be applied. Now it has been designed to require the WTO members to apply the most favorable tariff, and as you can see on the screen, regulatory treatment given to the products of any member at the times of import. But we only focus on the similar treatment only between and among like products. As you can see, the blue color on the screen, and so they ask that its member have to provide favorable tariff and on additional requirement or regulatory treatment to any products coming from the WTO member. Now, right here, I need you to spend a couple of minutes to read through the article, and then I come back to provide further explanations, because you need to read the text at first. And when you read the text, please follow the color. All the terms which has been presented in under the same color have the relationship with each other. And right here, you don't need to care. You don't need to care about paragraphs 2 and 4 of Article 3. That's the term in red on the screen. You don't need to care about that. You just follow the text, read through it, and I'll come back. Okay, have you all finished? Right, now here, let's read it together. Now, firstly, the principle has stated that with respect to what? Custom duty, charges of any kind, okay? And with respect to the method of levying such duty and charges, with respect to all rules and formalities in connection with importations, okay? Now, with respect to all these measures, then any advantage, favor, privilege, or immunity granted by any contracting party, that means the WTO member. Okay, so any kinds of tariff or charges that has been applied by a contracting party of the WTO to any products originating in or destined for any other country. Now, for those kinds of measures, they need to be accorded immediately and unconditionally to the like products that originating in the territory of all other contracting parties. Now, let's say in a very short language. Now, as you can see right here, Article 1 of the GATT requires that if one WTO members, now they grant to another country, and I have to emphasize it here that any kind of here, as you can see that they use the language of advantage, of favor, of privilege, or immunity granted. Now here, any kinds of these things, an advantage in a custom duty, let's say it is a very low import tariff, for example. Now normally I apply, or Vietnam applying a tariff rate at about 80 or 60%, right? For specific products to be imported, to cross the border. And now if I say that, okay, I'll cut it down to only 20% for that kind of custom duty, so that the product can be easily to enter into the border. So such kind of a low tariff can be recognized as an advantage for an importer. Okay, and so right here they say that if a WTO member grant to another country, any other country, it does not need to be the member of the WTO, any kinds of your trading partner. And right when you applied, or right at the time when you grant such kinds of advantage to those countries, and then it must be immediately and unconditionally give the same treatment to import from all signatories of the WTO. Here you get the point, that whenever I suggest or I provide, or a country member of the WTO provide any kinds of advantage to any products which has their origin from any territories around the world, I don't care. But at that time, these kinds of advantages also have to be spread out to all WTO members. Okay. Now, but when will a government may provide such kind of advantage? Well, normally, for example, because like it can happen among countries which or between countries that have a good relationship in their political economy, etc. For example, Japan have a very good relationship with the America, and so they may provide or they may encourage the trading between the two countries by cutting down the tariff and all kinds of charges, and even cut down on the kinds of requirement in the procedure, etc. Okay, and so when the two countries they are willing to cooperate, they want to be have a close relationship, then they may we may negotiate to cutting down on the barrier between them. Okay. For another case, maybe, for example, now Vietnam and Cambodia and or Laos, we share the same border, and because we are the, maybe I hope, hopefully that that on the economy data show it well, that Vietnam are at a little bit higher in compare with our two trading partner, and so in order to further develop and encourage trade between the two or the three country, excuse me, and in order to do so, the Vietnamese government and the Cambodian and Laos, they agree to cut down the tariff for all products that enter in between or among them. For example, Vietnam cuts down the tariff for the products that has the origin from Cambodia. So different nations have different reason to provide such kind of advantage. Okay, and but yeah, because the America like Japan and they want to support. And so they just only want to provide such kind of advantage for Japan and only for Japan. Like in the case of Vietnam, we only apply that kind of tariff reductions to the products that has the origin from Cambodia, but not from other country, but not from China. Okay, and so that is very popular for a country to provide such kind of favor or privilege to their trading partner. But then here, now under the most favored nations treatment of the WTO, they said that no, when you enter into the room with other more than 160, right now it's 164 member, and you need to spread out these kinds of treatment. That means if we apply a low tariff to a specific product has been come from a specific partner of Vietnam, then in such cases we need to spread out these kind of favor to all other members of the WTO. Do you get the point? Right here. Okay. Now, normally this MFN or this non-discrimination duty, as I have just give you an you're gonna charge it at border for the reason of importations, so we call it custom duties, and also other kinds of charges that connected with importing. And the MFN obligation also apply to internal taxes and charges, and to all the rules by which such duty or taxes and charges are applied. Now we will talk about that in detail, so you don't need to be worried right here. Okay, so if you have noticed at the previous slide, then you may recognize that all different requirements of MFN right now has been presented in this slide by 4 main issues. Now, in order to fully understand about these obligations under the WTO system, then there's four main issues that need to be clarified. Now, the first thing, this obligation is only applied for like products, right? So what exactly like products are, and based on which criteria that two or more products has been considered as like or unlike, then we need to clarify it in the system of the WTO. Now next, Article 1 states that any advantage, favor, privilege, or immunity granted by any member have to be applied or spread out among the WTO member. So what does it mean by advantage or favor right here? And in those such advantage or favor going to be applied in which situations? That things we need to be clarified. And also they say that this obligation have to be applied immediately and unconditionally. What exactly does that mean? And we need also to talk about that. And also the last one, now any rules in the WTO system mostly have an exceptions. Now, because when we digging deeper into the field, then you may have the idea that these kinds of rules put a very heavy burden on the shoulder of the WTO members. And in other words, those such kinds of principle of the WTO now at some angle are limiting the sovereignty right of the WTO members. And so it may stop a country to think about entering into the system, because just right after that, right after the time they have the membership of the organizations, then they have to like cut down their sovereignty in specific field. Like in this way, we have to follow the rules, but not to decide the tariff rate by ourselves. Now, before, for the country which we want to encourage, we want to promoting development of cooperation between the two, you may, that is your right to choose or to apply at any kind of tariff rate. But then when you enter into the system, you have, that's right, no more has been encouraged, right? And so you may think that, hey, why we need to follow into these rules, and why we have to enter into the organization if it can limit your right? And so these exceptions has been designed so that the WTO member may still keep for themselves some right relating to sovereignty in specific cases that the WTO system think that in such cases the WTO member have the right to still follow its policy or its need to do as its wish. And so we need to clarify in which cases that a country or a WTO member can have a chance to violate or to do or to act in reverse or in against the WTO law. That those things has been included in the exceptions page. Okay, now right here I have taken note. I've taken note the very basic principle of the MFN so that you can very easily to follow. Now, as you can see on the screen, the GATT Article 1, especially paragraph 1, provide that treatment, any kinds of treatment, right? At border or behind border. We will talk about that later. But right here, any kinds of treatment that has been applied at border accorded by the granting state to the beneficiary state, not less favorable than treatment extended by the granting state to a third state. Now, in a very, in a simple way, it's required any kinds of favorable treatment that has been granted to a product originating from any other country to be accorded immediately and unconditionally to the like product originating in the territory of all other WTO state member. Now, in other words, if a country gives favorable treatment to one country regarding a particular issues relating to a particular product, then it must handle all WTO member equally regarding the same issues, right? On the good things, like on the advantage that we may or we will apply or grant it to any products coming from any country around the world, then we have to give such kind of advantage to the products that has the origins from the WTO members. That is a very very general idea about MFN. Now, right now we jump into specific requirements of the obligations. The first thing is like products. Right. Now, as you just have a very basic idea that the rules or the same treatment that has been mentioned by Article 1 of GATT, it's only applied to like products. So an understanding of the terms like product is it's very much prerequisite. And so here you have to keep in mind that Article 1, Paragraph 1, and also other WTO regulations do not apply to the treatment of own products. It's normally and has been applied like the discrimination right here in this context. It's only applied among and between like products only. We're not talking about different types of product. Now, a higher tariff of, we will not compare the tariff of, let's say, autos with an orange, right? We will not compare those kinds of tariffs between them because they need to be taken in different rates. So right here, we need to understand or to know the terms like products in the system of the WTO, what exactly that means. Well, if you read through the text of MFN and also trying to dig in deeper into the multilateral trading agreements of the WTO, then you may find at nowhere the document that has been explained or interpret the term like products. And even in the context of the GATT Article 1, Paragraph 1, it is also very far from being like self-interpreting. It cannot be explained by itself. It also not has been clarified in the law of the WTO system, and even make it super harder for this understanding of products. The case law under the system of the WTO has also not interpreted in a linear manner. That's mean in some cases they're gonna apply these kinds of interpretations, but in other cases it's maybe adding further characteristic for explaining like products, and so it's make it super difficult for us to talk about that in such only one seminar. But here, right here, we can get some very basic idea about like product under the system. Now it does suggest that under the case law of the WTO, that likeness in the context of GATT Article 1 should be given a kind of narrow interpretations. Okay, it should be understand or consider in a very narrow interpretations. And so the questions still are what products are like, and in a very general idea, the WTO has interpreted like product as those products that are, let's say, in a competitive relationship with each other. Hi class, are you still there?
Yes, teacher.
Thank you. Because the internet is a little bit unstable right here, and so I cannot see you. Cannot see your reactions. Thank you. Right, you get back. And so I have just mentioned that that when we consider when we examine two products in a context, then we will firstly think about it in a competitive relationship with each other, right? So as I have mentioned earlier, a more stringent regulatory burden on, let's say, on cars than oranges will not raise the WTO concerns on MFN, right? Because such kinds of products are different products, and they will not come competitive with each other. They are different things. And if I decide to buy, let's say, 1 kilo of oranges, it does not mean that this may affect my decision on to buy a car, for example, right? And so the next question is, what products are in competitive relationship with one another? Well, in order to answer these questions, sometimes it's very clear, like a canned tuna that has been produced from different countries may compete against one another in the same market, and they can be considered like products, right? And so different canned tuna that has the origin from different country, when those kinds of product has been entered or at border of our country, then at that time they can be considered as like products. Because if I buy a canned tuna, let's say from Thailand, that's my favorite, then I will not decide to buy such kind of canned tuna from America, for example, or from other European country. Okay, so such kind of products are easily to be defined that those are competitive, those are like products. Because if a customer, right, if a customer decide to buy this product, then they will not choose others products, right? And so the decision of the consumer the customer may affect to the sales of other products. And so for these kinds of canned tuna, they can be considered as like products in the context. So well, that case is super clear for us to follow, but sometimes it is less clear. And right now, the case law jump into a very like difficulties. Well, for such cases, what must be examined generally is the nature and let's say the extent of competitive relationship between the relevant products. And so in the system of the WTO, normally there's no one approach, and it's no need applying only one approach for each analysis. And so for different cases, different situations, different markets, then we may have different kinds of approach in defining, in analyzing like products. Okay. And so because this complicated to handle, there's some manual or some suggestions that can be applied specific situations. Well, at a simplest way, system of preferences, the harmonized system of preferences, what exactly it is. Now here, as you can see on the screen, there's the Mfn tariff schedule for agricultural products of Vietnam. Let's have a look at it, especially for the column on the left side, which headed by the term HS, that is harmonized system. Okay, and it's followed with the long list of number or series of number. Now these has been composed by 8 digits right here, as you can see. Can you see it clearly right here? Because I cannot make it. Okay, right here. Now, now on the left side, you can see the HS code of current trading products around the world. And these kinds of products has been listed and grouped by the World Customs Organization, the WTO. And so right here, each product and some products will be put in the same code. For example, with right here, you can see that they have 8 digits. And when 2 products that has been put under the same code, then they can be considered as like products. Now, this is called tariff classifications. Hay gọi là phân loại thuế quan đó các bạn. Phân loại thuế quan. Là thì họ đặt các, và mỗi cái mã này thì sẽ có tối đa là 8 số. Và nếu như mà hai cái ví dụ như đây bạn thấy là ví dụ như mã 0802 này là ở đến độ 4 của cái mã này, thì bạn sẽ có thấy gì ạ? Thì tất cả những cái món này nó nằm trong một cái mã, đúng không? Thì nó sẽ được xem là các sản phẩm tương, được chưa? Đó là cái general idea. Nó thì lại làm được cái việc là đưa các cái hàng hóa nào hay sản phẩm nào vào trong một nhóm. Thì đấy là tố để so sánh hai sản phẩm, ví dụ như là cái lượng. Các bạn ơi, còn đó không?
Nãy giờ cô giật đó
cô đọc lại, cô có thể nào nói lại từ cái chỗ mà cái cột HS được không cô? Từ cái khúc đó là tụi em không có nghe được gì hết cô. Dạ.
Okay, mình sẽ
cái cô thì nói được nghe được là HS rồi. Nghe
nha. Hi class, are you still there?
Dạ, em có nghe ạ.
Okay. I can because I cannot see you on the screen. You still you still.
Nó hơi giật giật đó cô.
Giật lắm á cô ạ. Nghe chữ được chữ không ấy ạ?
Bắt đầu từ cái khúc mà lúc đầu là hơi giật rồi, cái tới cái bản này là đã không nghe rõ được rồi cô ơi.
Okay. Or better I should sign and we all get back to the room. What other things we can do, because I'm quite low tech.
Mạng cô bị giật rồi cô ơi.
So we may have unstable conditions until 26th of this month, and so I hope they can fix it earlier so that we can follow the class and stick with our schedule. How about right now, class?
Bây giờ thì có nghe được cô, nhưng mà lúc nãy thì không, nên là cô có thể nói lại từ cái khúc live product được không cô?
We go back to last, right?
Dạ, nó lắc quá. Em nghĩ bên em nó mạng giật lắm, em không nghe được. Cảm ơn cô.
All right. Then we're going back to the previous slide, and I may suggest further explanations. Now we are talking about like products, okay? And as I have mentioned that an understanding of the term like product is super important. Why? Because such kind of MFN obligation will be required only in case or among like products. And this obligation will not apply to all products around the world, right? And so this is important for us to understand and to clarify what exactly like products right here are. And so under the system of the WTO, there's a few things you need to take note, okay, about like products. Now, the first thing, in the system, the likeness should be given a very narrow interpretations. They cannot be explained as the willing of different partners, right? Like products have to be have to stick with the context, with the market, and with the different characteristic that's arising in a specific market. So that's the first thing. It has to be given a narrow interpretations. Okay. All right. Now, so still there, student?
So Miss, who is responsible to interpret whether that product is live product or not? If we get in a case.
All right. For answering these questions, then you need to come back to the dispute settlement understanding that we have discussed last time. That when you submit a claim, then what thing you have to do? You have to clarify what exactly is the violations are. You have to point out that the relevant article are in the provisions that has been violated. And so under such kind of violation, you need to clarify exactly what is happening. And so, yes, if you say that a specific country, a specific territory are right now applying different tariffs, okay, on your products and others' products from other countries, then you have to prove that those are like products. Why not, right? Because based on that ground, then the obligation that arises or that has been requested.
For example, a case between America and Vietnam, which has been lasted for 10 years, as far as I remember, is related to seafood. Both countries, each country has their own explanation, whether it's a live product or not. And is lengthen the whole process. So who is responsible to, like, why so long to to do that, and which body is responsible to decide whether that product is light product and whether a country is violating the tariff?
Okay. Well, maybe you are talking about GS 404 or GS 429. Well, if you are talking about those cases, then again, as I have to mention that now when you enter into a case, because you are the complainant, and then you have to prepare first your argument and all the like, let's say, evidences and facts and things relating to the case, and you have to, let's say we are talking about a kind of arbitration procedures. Now, if you like to win the case, you have to defend, or you have to prove by yourself. For the defendant, they also have to argue, they also have to prepare on the proof and all the document and all the things to prove that they have not violated the law or the rules. And so these are sticking to the dispute settlement system of the WTO. And now the burden of proof gonna be exchanged between the two sides, right? Between the two parties. Now, if you give the complaint, you give the claim, then you have to prove it first, and the respondent, then that is his turn to prove against your arguments, and right. And so, yeah, firstly, if you are the complainant, you have to do first. And in order to defend, to protect themselves, then the defendant, until their turn to prove that your argument is wrong, right? And so, at the last stage, then the panel and the appellate body gonna be the body who consider your arguments. And also they will do by themselves the examinations, and that which side is more provide sufficient proof and arguments, and also they also conducting themselves the examinations to analyze into the WTO agreement or the WTO law, that how those such kinds of or specific requirement or specific article has been interpreted in such situations. Is it are they like products or not? How can we do so? And so the first burden of proof gonna lay on the shoulder of the both parties, and finally the dispute settlement body, that means the panel and the appellate body, gonna do the conclusions, or can give their analysis and examination and give their judgment.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Welcome. And so what I'm talking about, like product right here in this slide, is just only to give you a very clear background about like products terms in the system. And so here in the system, we have just under the case law of the WTO, we all have the idea that these terms or likeness have to be given a very narrow interpretations. That's the first characteristic. Okay, because as I have mentioned that that different cases provide different kinds of context, and so we cannot give a very clear or neat idea about like products in the system, because they're going to base mostly on the case law. Okay, and so that's the first one. It has to be provide a narrow interpretations. And now for a very general idea about like products, the basic idea about these things is that those are in a competitive relationship products. So what exactly the things like in a competitive relationship? That means, for example, when you buy a specific product that has to, okay, let's say you let's say let's make a wish right now. We can get out our home right now if you are in Ho Chi Minh City, and you can go to supermarket to choose or to buy the things that you need. Now, when you enter into the supermarket, then you can see on the shelf there's different kinds of fruits like apples, oranges, grapes, pear, etc. And so on the shelf, when you decide to buy orange, or when you decide to buy apple, will it come to be considered as like products? Now let's say, may I have your idea about these things? Do you think that apple and oranges can be considered as like products? Class.
I think yes, because this kind of fruit and this kind of a choose or to eat, so it can be considered to be the like product.
Okay. Any others? Any objections right here? All right. So now one friend in our class, she said that it can be considered between apple and orange are like products because those are just only fruit. Yes, and for me, for example, if I am not like a very if I don't love fruit a lot, I just eat them to get the vitamins and other values. So for me, if I eat apple or if I eat oranges, that's no different for me. But for other kinds of angle, now let's say, how about if the time for an apple tree or an oranges to be grow up with well developed and for the years that a tree can supply any kinds of fruits, it may be different. And also even the vitamins included in specific fruits are also different, right? And let's see about the color, about the things are different things. Now, when you consider two products alike or not, it depends on what? It depends on the criteria, right? If you depend on these criteria, those may be considered as like products. But if you depend on other kinds of criteria, it may lead to another result, right? And so that is the reason why, as I have listed on the screen right here, as you can see. Now, when we talk about, we may consider physical characteristic of products, the end use of it, or consumer preferences, or even tariff clarifications. And so that those may be the things or the criteria that may support for the clarifications of two products alike or not. And so that's right, exactly right here. Then we've moved on to the tariff clarifications. Are you still with me?
Of course, teacher.
All right. Now here's the class, the tariff clarifications. As you can see on the left side, which has been provided the HS code. Well, this is called the HS code for all current trading products that has been grouped by the World Customs Organizations. Đấy là Tổ chức Hải quan Thế giới à? And so the same product or similar products will be put in the same under the same code with 8 digits, and those can be considered as like products. Now if you base on this HS code, and as I have mentioned earlier, that for products that has been listed under the same code, they may be considered as light products. Okay, and so if you base on that, then at how many digits right here, as you can see that the list of eight number, and then so at what level then two products can be considered as light products? Well, under the system of the WTO, the 6 digits level is the appropriate level. Then likeness will be established by a demonstration that a product belongs to the same tariff line. But as you can see, in many cases, this list is not enough for clarifying competitive products, as the market is full of complicated situations, right? And also because what will happen if there's a new product and it hasn't been listed in this tariff classifications? So how can we do? So in such cases, like products, as I have mentioned earlier, are defined via jurisprudence activities. That means it's going to be clarified and defined under the system of dispute settlement of the WTO. Now, right here, I think for us, it's better to spend time on talking about this thing. How it's going to work, how a situation can be analyzed. We will talk about light product right here in this slide, but we also take this chance to talk about the whole MFN requirement under Article 1, Paragraph 1 of the WTO. All right. Now, prior to the as you can see on the screen, the Royal Decree number 1764, right? Prior to this decree that has been adopted on the regions of Spain, import of unroasted coffee into the country were subject to a custom duty of 25%. Okay. And this tariff, its import tariff, was subsequently reduced to about 22%. And so in 1975, and maybe in November of that year, then Spain decided to exempt import of certain food products, including unroasted coffee from custom duty. And for such kinds of decision, there's no difference in custom duty applying on unroasted coffee imported into the regions, into the country of Spain. Okay, so here on the left side, you can see, as I have noted on the board, at the times of the year 1975, there's no difference in custom duty applying on unroasted coffee that's imported from other country into Spain. Okay, but in 1979, then the Spanish authorities enact the Royal Decree, as I have mentioned on the screen, number 1746, and under this decree, then they apply the tariff treatment and the sub-tariff classifications applied to import of unroasted and non-decaffeinated coffee, and in that degree, then they change the duty rate on imported coffee. And right here, as you can see, for Colombian mild and other mild coffee, they will be applied free duty rate. That means they have to pay no money for the importations. But for other kinds of sub groups of coffee, let's say unwashed Arabica and Robusta, and also other kinds of coffee that has not been listed in this list, will be applied about 7% ad valorem of tariff. You don't need to care about ad valorem. It's we will talk about that by the next seminar. Right here, you just have the idea that for the first two types of coffee, Colombian Milo and other Milos, they're going to be applied no tariff duties. But for the next three types, they have to be applied. They have to pay about 7% of import duty when they enter into the country. All right, now let's say and look further into the situations. Now Spain's import of unroasted coffee from Brazil were constituted of almost entirely unwashed Arabica. That means Brazil was the main supplier of unwashed Arabica and also Robusta into Spain's regions. Okay. And so Brazil right here, now let's think about the situations. Before 1975, I had to pay no tax, no tariff duty for imported of this coffee. But after the royal decree right now, the Spain government, now they decide by themselves to separate coffee into different kinds of groups. Let's say right here you have 5 groups, okay? And based on these kinds of classifications, then it's choose to apply different kinds of tariff rates. And so for Brazil, that it's quite unfair, right? And therefore, Brazil put the claim on the system. It's argued that by introducing right here is 7% tariff rate on import of unroasted and unroasted coffee. In this case, unwashed Arabica and Robusta groups. Why also affording duty-free treatment to coffee of other groups? Then this degree applying by Spain was a discriminatory against Brazil, because this country is the main exporter of unwashed Arabica and Robusta coffee into Spain. And therefore, Brazil believes that this is a violation of Article 1, Paragraph 1 of the system. Okay? So you are all here with me. Now, for its argument, Spain say that it stressed that, well, under the system of the multilateral trading system, no contracting parties was obligated to retain either its tariff structure or its duty, and so it has the right to apply any kind of tariff classification right here, and they have the reason to do so because it's sufficient. And it suits to the characteristic of Spain foreign trade. Now, what is the ground for the Spanish government to put such kinds of coffee into different groups? Now they say that the differences in let's say in qualities existed between them. And it is the result of climatic and growing conditions. Also, it's rising from the method of cultivations, for example, and above all, the preparations of the coffee, because the aroma and taste has been added into the procedures of processing the coffee bean. Okay, and so they think that based on these differences, and then it's put different and it's list the coffee bean into different kinds of coffee. And therefore, because they are different, they need to be applied different tariff rates. Okay. Now in response, the representative of Brazil has argued that normally whatever names that you put for a coffee product, they are just one single product, and that's it. That is the argument provided by Brazil. Now let's say, for example, under Article 1, Paragraph 1 of GATT, then this article only apply for coffee that can be considered they are like, right? And so in these situations, the Spain say that those are different and those are not like products. But for the Brazilian, they say that they are the same. They are one single product, and whatever the things we do to the berries, to the coffee bean, it doesn't change the origins of the products, and it doesn't change the natures of the products. And also for the customer, now let's say when you go to a coffee shop ordering for coffee, whether with milk or whether it is a kind of black coffee, now for you yourself, the customer thinks that they are drinking coffee, and in Arabica, Robusta, or something, it's just the name that has been put it for the seller, for the producer, so that it can be easier for them to manage these kinds of products. But for the customer, there's no difference between these groups. For them, drinking coffee is coffee, and that's all. Okay. Now, so as you can see right here, when a claim has been raised, then the two disputing parties now have to prove, have to argue by themselves in order to protect their argument, right? In this case, Brazilians have to prove that those kinds of coffee are not different. Those kinds of coffee have to be considered as like products, and therefore they have to be applied the same tariff rate, right? But for Spain, they have to prove that those are not kinds of like products, and that is reasonable for them to apply different kinds of tariff rate. All right. Now, at the end, this is the terms of the panel. Well, I have to say that the panel has mostly agreed to Brazilian argument, although they not like strictly saying so. But the panel examined all arguments, and they also do their own evaluations, and it's noted that the arguments provided by both sides mainly related to organoleptic differences relating to the product, and these differences resulting from geographical factors, but not resulting from the coffee bean itself. Let's say the coffee bean, coffee tree has been growing, has been planted in different country, in different land, and it may come to with different, slightly different in the coffee bean, and that's all. And so the things make it different mostly is relating to the procedure, the process that a coffee bean has been going through, but not by the coffee itself. You got what I mean? Let's say in a very simple way. Now, the coffee is coffee, right? But the way how how they cultivate, the processing of the bean, and also the genetic factor, the flavor that they add into this bean when they process it, that make the difference, but not the coffee bean itself, right? And so the panel did not consider that such differences were sufficient reasons to allow for different tariff treatments, and so that is the reason why they said that such kind of clarifications of spend is okay, but they have to be considered between these products, especially unwashed Arabica and Robusta, have to be applied with the same tariff rate, because there's not much different enough in order to apply different tariff. Okay, class, is it clear right here when we talk about like products and how a case can be examined, and how a specific issues right here, like product has been examined in a specific cases. Now, right here, the explanations of the panel gonna stick on like geographical factor, cultivation method, the processing of the bean. And now, based on these requirements, based on these criteria, then they conclude that these kinds of coffee are like, okay, whether it's Colombian, whatever name or whatever type that the Spain has designed for the products, those are coffee, and at the core they are not different, and so they have to be applied the same tariff rate. Okay,
Miss, when the cases like happen, why don't they also consider other factors that construe whether that is like product or not? For example, consumer preference or something like that, because maybe the majority of people living in Spain like Colombian might, and the minority don't, and maybe they consider other factor instead of just focus on physical characteristics of the product as well as the end use of the product.
Okay, why not? As I have mentioned earlier, then they also consider from the views of the customer. I have mentioned before that for the customer themselves, whether they choose this different kinds when they order a coffee cup, well, normally for them, those are coffee. And the difference in the names of the coffee is depending on the procedures or the processing of the products, but not by the coffee bean itself. Now, right here, they consider all the criteria, but then when they realize that those kinds of differences arising only by the way or the things they make with the bean, but not rising from the bean itself. You got what I mean right here? Well, now when they analyze all the issues, all the criteria, then they choose to focus on specific issues, on specific criteria, because it's like it is meaningful in specific situation, in specific market. Now, in this case, for the customer side, it is not the panel, but the Brazil, the defendant, talking about the customer and about the result when we examine from the customer side. Now, at whatever form it has been served, coffee is coffee, which is not much different. and the name which you can find down at the coffee shop are just the things designed by the producer. But when we come to the products, coffee are just coffee, and it doesn't change to the caffeine or something inside of like, let's say, the ingredient to make it. Those are just coffee. And so for the case, they decide that because these differences has been arising only because of the effect from the people, from the producer, from the supplier, and so it's not because of the coffee bean itself. And so that is the reason why they have concluded that those are like products.
Would it be different? Would it be different if the coffee is Weasel coffee?
The Weasel coffee has not been listed on the list, right? And so we're not thinking about that. In specific case, in specific market, in specific situations, then they compare. Now, right here, there's no such kinds of coffee on the list. And for Brazil, they are just trying to focus on unwashed Arabica and Robusta because those are their main products to span markets. And we will not, and this does not necessary to extend the situations. And also for the panel of the WTO, and let's say right here in this year, that's the times of GATT. But for the panel, they only have the duty to examine those things has been claimed, right? I have mentioned many times that it is falling under the scope of the claim, and so the panel have to stick on that. They have no right to explain further. And in this case, there's no place for such kind of Weasel bean, coffee bean, and so it doesn't need to examine with that. The things may be different. Why not? It depends. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Oh, we are too late. Super late. All right. So that is all the things about like products. Now we move to the coverage. Now, the next issue, as I have mentioned earlier, is that we need to clarify what exactly the advantages are. Now, the advantages or any favor in the case of MFN, gonna be relating to tariff regulations on export and import, and any kinds of internal taxes and charges and internal regulations. And so the policy covered by GATT Article 1, Paragraph 1 of GATT can be divided into two categories, as you can see on the screen. The first one is border measures. Border measures. That means all measures that are going to be applied at border of each country. Now, on border measures, irrespective of now whether of a fiscal character, that means let's say financial, whether it has a financial character, such as for example, in the case of Spain or unroasted coffee, those are custom duty, or whether those are charges of any kind imposed on or in connection with importations. Or not, we don't care. We don't care whether those kinds of measures have financial characteristic or not. Okay, such rules also relating to like licensing procedures, right? And also different kinds of measure that has been applied here at border will be fall under the scope of most favored nations. In Article 1 also states that the MFN clause does not extend only to duty and charges, but also to the method of levying them. let's say countervailing duties are also covered by this term. Okay, and also on rules and formalities in connection with importations will also fall under the scope of the MFN. Now, at the second level, MFN also apply at internal for internal measures, but because this is too much for the class, and so right here, the general idea is that MFN gonna be applied for both border measures and internal measures. But for internal measure, you save it for the next class, for the next seminar, as I will talk about Article 3. And then right there, you may have a better idea about what exactly internal measures. But the basic idea is that in even internal measure, that means not only the things or the requirement that's applied at the border, but after entering into the market, behind the border, all these requirements also have to be applied equally between imported products. Those are internal taxes or internal charges, and even internal regulations on sales, offering for sales, purchase, transportation, distribution of use, etc. Okay, so here at this level, please have the very basic in your mind that GATT Article 1 is very wide in coverage. They can include fiscal and regulatory measures, internal and apply at border measures, bound and unbound tariff also. Okay, now I will talk very briefly about how it's going to be applied immediately and unconditionally. Now, at a very basic idea, that MFN of obligation has required that MFN or an advantage in the applications of a tariff rate have to be extended immediately and unconditionally to all a WTO member. Now, normally, whereas the term immediately seems to be unproblematic, because normally there's no dispute arising on